you want to make a sound for us? Hello. You are looking at the best preserved wall and fortification system of a city. Definitely in Europe, possibly anywhere in the world. There's been a wall there since like the 7th century, something like that. Then they started actively fortifying it from about the 12th or 13th century, I think. In 1667, during a huge earthquake, rocks from the hills behind the city tumbled down and basically destroyed everything. Except the wall. The wall just stood standing. It's like the one thing you can count on. Most of the buildings were rebuilt following the earthquake. A couple of originals still stand, which I'll show you. And I'm told that the city was never quite as good after the earthquake. Never quite regained its former opulence. This here is the main boulevard, if you like. Take a good look at these buildings opposite. You'll notice that they all kind of look the same, except for one right down the end, which I'll point out later. That's because they were all basically destroyed in the Great Earthquake of 1667. They used to be palaces with each a unique character and balconies. You'll notice there are no balconies because it was considered a hazard in the event of an earthquake. So they didn't put balconies there the second time after they rebuilt them after the earthquake. And they were all done in the same style, unfortunately, after the earthquake. The thing is, it wasn't just the falling rocks that ruined the buildings. There was also a fire that raged here for about 20 days due to a bizarre combination of hot winds, hot weather. Of course, the thing that started the fire was lamps falling over. The same thing happened in Lisbon, actually, in the Great Fire that destroyed that city. Anyway, this building, the customs house and some other thing, like this was where you would go to pay your taxes and check in when you came here to sell your wares. This one was not destroyed, and you can see how much nicer it is, right? Any more details. And the city was so wealthy, the merchants basically used these houses along the boulevard, palaces, also as warehouses for their gold and silver and textiles and things that they were trading. And the story goes that when the fire was raging, there was literally a river of melted gold and silver running down this street. This here is Dubrovnik as seen from the nearby nature island of Lokrum. Really nice place and really good view if you can hack the walk to get here. I'm standing at a part of the island that is kind of a bit far away from the other things on the island, so you do have to walk a bit to get here, but it's really not that far and it's really worth it, I'd say. And there's absolutely nobody here. And then I decided it would be a great idea to walk up this f***ing big hill to get a nice view. There's also a fort up here. You can't see it. Was it worth it? I don't know. Of course, it's hard now that this place is a tourist mecca and the site where many Game of Thrones scenes have been shot, to imagine what life was like here centuries ago, when the city was a major trading capital and there were merchants making their fortunes and spending lots of money on opulent palaces and filling them with gold and silver. But even more inconceivable for me is envisioning what happened here in 1991 and onwards, during the conflict following Croatia's declaration of independence from the former Yugoslavia. Now, I do need to point out before I show you this that what follows is my recount of the retelling of what it was like living in Dubrovnik during the Homeland War, according to my tour guide. She's 40 years old. She lived there at the time through the whole ordeal. But since then, I've done some further reading on my own, and some of the things I say in the video don't completely agree with what you find on Wikipedia or YouTube, for example. I made the decision to leave the footage as it is to tell you basically what I was told on the day. But as always, you should not just take it for granted what I'm telling you. I do encourage you to do some reading, and please don't hate me if I've messed up some facts. The city was completely unprepared and basically defenseless when Serbian troops arrived and basically took over the city in a matter of days, practically with no resistance. That occupation lasted something like 8 months. 8 months without running water, without electricity, with not much food to eat. And despite all that, or perhaps because of it, as recounted by the tour guide that I had this afternoon, the feeling of solidarity was very, very strong in the city at the time. If you had a loaf of bread, you would share it with your neighbours. She said that even under those conditions, they never expected that Milosevic would bomb a UNESCO World Heritage Site. They thought that inside the city walls they would be safe. In fact, people came from neighbouring territories to flee inside the city walls, believing they'd be safe for exactly those reasons. Basically, whenever you see a building that has relatively new or colourful looking roof tiles, such as this one or that one over there, you know that that roof was probably restored after being damaged due to bombing in the early 1990s. Something like 70% of the buildings had some kind of damage during that conflict. You can see this, by way of contrast, is the colour of the roof tiles for sections that were untouched. But our guide also said that bombing the old city was a major tactical blunder, if anything, of Milosevic, because bombing a UNESCO World Heritage Site is a really good way to get international attention for what you're doing. In the end, of course, the result is that the states of the former Yugoslavia are all independent again, and the city of Dubrovnik, like a phoenix, her words, not mine, is now thriving once more.